Okay. Hi, my name's Neil Lane. I hope you're all travelling well today and you've had a chance to recover from what was a very sad moment this morning when we started this forum. And thank you, Lisa, Indy and Rachel for that great talk on Safe Wards. While I was waiting to come up, I was practicing some of those techniques on myself, and I can tell you they work really well. Okay, a little bit about myself. I am acting CEO of MEAC for another week, when I'll very gratefully hand that role back to Maggie Toko, and won't go there again, I can promise you that. I also have a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and I've spent a couple of years of my life living on psych wards. I'm also, like Indy, a victim of childhood sexual abuse and other traumas, and that's part of what I carry with me. So I might just move on now. How do you?
On the down arrow.
Down arrow. Where the goddamn hell is that? All right, thank you. Okay, all right. So a little bit about MEAC. We're the peak NGO representing consumers in Victoria, and that encompasses a lot of people with different takes on what mental illness is, or mental health concerns are. We provide advocacy for people right across the state, and we deliver training and information to people and the community. We have a large membership base. I think we've got 1,300 members. Is that large? It sounds kind of a bit large, but it's large to me anyway. And we are staffed and led by people with a lived experience of mental illness. And we're in East Brunswick if you ever want to pop by. It's a very friendly place. Okay, so my talk today is about safety is important for everyone, and I just want to begin by saying, that this whole conversation this morning, the WorkSafe ads, that it's very important that we're at this position in time, and that we're starting to look at violence in healthcare settings, because it's completely unacceptable for violence to occur in a place where people go, for help and support. And the impact of violence on people is so tremendous. As someone myself who has been kind of subject to a couple of serious violent assaults, I kind of know it's something that you don't really get over. It kind of stays with you for a lifetime. No one should have to turn up to work feeling unsafe, and that's the case for a lot of people in the health system. I've worked in the health system for, nearly 20 years, and I've been involved in a lot of incidents. I've seen lots of lockdowns, and I've worked 10 of those years in Footscray and seen some very kind of violent things happening in Footscray. And last but not least, no patient should ever have to experience violence in a healthcare setting, and unfortunately that does happen. So what I'm going to cover today is just the whole challenging context of this conversation about violence in healthcare settings. I think everyone here is aware of that. It is challenging, extremely challenging, and as someone who's been on both sides of the fence, as a worker and a patient, so that's really driven home to me a lot. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about some things that I think that need to change. And that's just not change within health systems, it's broader than that. And also share some kind of concerns I have for what's happening in mental health or what needs to happen in mental health. All right, so I'll begin by saying we need to have a conversation. Actually, we need to have a dialogue, and it needs to be inclusive, and it needs to, really make clear that violence and aggression, it isn't a us and them thing. It's not something that one person wears and the other person feels the force of. It's more complex than that. We also need to have that conversation, so, like, we don't further stigmatise, already kind of damaged and marginalised people who come for us, seeking kind of help. Yeah, and I think, most importantly, that we need to recognise that the root cause of violence is anger, and and as a culture, we're awash with anger, and it's running amok, and and it's a major social issue for us all, and it's not something that's really being addressed out there. We're seeing it in the health system, but it's happening everywhere. It's in schools, teachers, everywhere you name it, public transport. It's just out there. And and it's anger, and it's uncontrolled anger, and surely there must be a way of supporting people to learn really a little bit more about how to manage the feelings that they're having. Yeah, and finally, we need to have that conversation about the failings in our current system and what needs to change and how we're going to go about doing that. Well, I'm glad someone laughed, I don't think it's funny, really, but, no, but, there is a real danger if we have a one-sided conversation, and we've had some very good examples of late about that. Okay, all right, just moving along. I'm going to talk about the mental health system because that's what I work in, and these facts and figures, they're taken from the Mental Health Services annual report from last year. And, and you can see, like, there's, like 67,000 people using clinical services. I think that's kind of, like, stayed about that number for quite a few years, but we're nearly 20,000 hospitalisations of adults with a mental illness in inpatient wards. Half of those are involuntary, and so it's a case where people don't have a choice whether they're going to be treated or not. And and as noted in the report, there's real concerns that that admissions are kind of like increasing, kind of like even more, particularly in some areas, the outer eastern areas, where there's just been this huge surge, and there's questions about why that's happening. Is it the obvious one? Is it drugs, or is it something else, or is it just the whole combination of what's happening for people? Okay, and this is a little graphic, and it looks at the source of referrals. So it's referrals, but it also gives you some understanding, that just how many kind of like presentations are taking place at EDs. Also, it's got some figures around, bodily restraint, and bodily restraint is a whole lot of things now. And they're quite concerning that that's happening at such a rate. Seclusion, again, it hasn't changed much. It's changed a little. It's dropped, I think, 1 percentage point since there was that move towards kind of like getting rid of, such restrictive interventions. Again, someone who has been secluded a number of times, I can tell you how terrifying it is, because you've got absolutely no, understanding what's happening next, all right, so here's a little bit of research that's been pulled together, and sort of just thought, I suppose, allows people to look at sort of like just who's coming to hospital, and perhaps what some of those people's backgrounds are, and they're often very significant backgrounds of trauma, violence, family violence, emotional abuse, and having those kind of backgrounds means that the potential for you to get really ill quite a lot, just magnifies like out of hand. The really sad thing is, like a lot of this trauma and experiences that people have then gets replayed in hospitals, because, putting people into hospitals altogether in a very overcrowded mental health system, it's just, for a lot of people it's the worst thing. A lot of people are just traumatised by their hospitalisations, and they take a long time to get over. And I'm not saying there's not a need for intervention, so I just kind of question the wisdom that this is all we've got at the moment. So this is my final slide, and it's just some parting thoughts. And unintentionally, I've left out a word there, but as someone pointed out, how do we talk about this without talking about this or this? And I think, it's a big question. I suppose it's just, for me anyway, it sums up the whole thing. How do we have this conversation about violence and aggression, what we're going to do in healthcare to make people safer, to make patients safer, and most importantly, to make staff who turn up every day to do this job safe. And I don't know the answer, but I feel that it's something that will come out of people with a lived experience of mental illness, drug use, mental health staff, hospital staff, getting together and talking and understanding what's happening for each other a little bit more, having a better understanding of what's happening in those spaces. Okay, all right, thank you.